On the night of April 14, 1912, the world's most luxurious ship slipped silently through the freezing waters of the North Atlantic. It had been called unsinkable. It had been called a triumph of human genius. And in just a few hours, it would become one of the greatest tragedies in American history. This is the story of the Titanic. Not just the ship, but the people, the choices, and the lessons that reshaped a nation. At the dawn of the 20th century, America was booming. Industry was exploding, fortunes were rising, and immigration was transforming cities like New York and Boston. The Titanic was more than a ship. It was a symbol of modern ambition. Built by the White Star Line in Belfast, she was the largest moving object ever created by human hands. Stretching over 882 feet long, powered by massive steam engines, and designed with watertight compartments that engineers believed made her practically unsinkable, the Titanic embodied confidence, perhaps too much of it. On April 10, 1912, the Titanic departed from Southampton, England, bound for New York City. On board were more than 2,200 passengers and crew. Among them were some of the wealthiest Americans alive: industrialist John Jacob Astor IV, business magnate Benjamin Guggenheim, and Macy's co-owner Isidor Straus. But below decks, in third class, were hundreds of immigrants from Ireland, Italy, Scandinavia, and Eastern Europe. They carried dreams of a better life in America: factory jobs, farmland, opportunity, freedom. For 4 days, the voyage was smooth. First-class passengers dined under glittering chandeliers and strolled along polished decks. Third-class families sang songs, shared meals, and imagined the moment they would see the Statue of Liberty rise over New York Harbor. But the North Atlantic in April is unforgiving. On April 14th, the Titanic received multiple wireless warnings about icebergs drifting directly into its path. Yet the ship maintained near top speed, about 22 knots. Why? Some historians believe it was a desire to arrive early in New York to make headlines. Others say it was simple overconfidence in the ship's design. At 11:40 p.m., lookout Frederick Fleet spotted something ahead, a dark mass against the starlit sky. "Iceberg right ahead," he rang down to the bridge. First Officer William Murdoch ordered a hard turn and reversed the engines, but the Titanic was too massive to pivot in time. The iceberg scraped along the starboard side, slicing open multiple compartments below the waterline. It did not look dramatic. Many passengers barely felt the impact, but beneath the surface, icy seawater poured in. Within minutes, the ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, assessed the damage. 5 compartments were flooding. The Titanic could survive 4, not 5. It would sink, and it would sink in less than 3 hours. Captain Edward Smith began ordering lifeboats uncovered. Here lay one of the greatest tragedies. The Titanic carried lifeboats for only half of the people on board. At the time, maritime regulations were outdated. They were based on ship tonnage, not passenger capacity. The Titanic actually exceeded the minimum requirement, but the rules themselves had not kept pace with technology. As lifeboats were lowered, confusion reigned. Many passengers did not believe the ship would truly sink. Some lifeboats were launched half-empty. First-class passengers had easier access to the boat deck. Third-class passengers faced language barriers, locked gates, and difficulty navigating the ship's labyrinthine corridors. Yet, in the chaos, stories of courage emerged. Benjamin Guggenheim reportedly changed into evening wear and said he was prepared to go down like a gentleman. Isidor Straus refused a seat in a lifeboat while women and children remained on board. His wife Ida chose to stay with him. "Where you go, I go," she said. The ship's band continued playing music, hymns, and popular tunes to calm passengers as the bow sank lower into the sea.
At 2:20 a.m. on April 15, 1912, the Titanic broke apart and plunged beneath the icy water. In minutes, more than 1,500 people were dead from drowning or hypothermia in water just 28 degrees Fahrenheit. But the story did not end there. About 58 miles away, another ship, the RMS Carpathia, had picked up the Titanic's distress calls. Its captain, Arthur Rostron, pushed his ship at full speed through ice fields in the darkness. Around 4 a.m., Carpathia began rescuing survivors from lifeboats. Only about 705 survived. When Carpathia arrived in New York on April 18th, tens of thousands gathered at the docks in rain and silence. America was stunned. Newspapers ran banner headlines. How could the unsinkable ship sink? How could so few lifeboats be available? Why were ice warnings ignored? The tragedy sparked immediate investigations in both the United States and Britain. In Washington, Senator William Alden Smith led hearings that questioned surviving officers and crew. The inquiries exposed critical failures: insufficient lifeboats, lack of binoculars in the crow's nest, inadequate emergency drills, and complacency about iceberg danger. But from tragedy came reform. In 1914, the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea was established, a landmark maritime treaty that still governs ship safety today. It required enough lifeboats for everyone on board, continuous radio watch, and the creation of the International Ice Patrol to monitor iceberg threats in the North Atlantic. The Titanic changed the rules of the sea. For America, the disaster also revealed deep social divides. Survival rates were starkly unequal. About 62% of first-class passengers survived. In third class, survival was closer to 25%. The ship was a floating microcosm of the Gilded Age, wealth and poverty separated not just by decks, but by fate. Yet the Titanic also became a symbol of shared humanity. Courage, sacrifice, fear, love, all compressed into 160 minutes. Decades later, the wreck lay undiscovered on the ocean floor, 12,500 feet below the surface, until 1985, when oceanographer Robert Ballard and his team located it. The sight of the broken hull resting in darkness reignited global fascination. Books were written, documentaries produced, and in 1997, James Cameron's film Titanic brought the story to a new generation, blending fictional romance with real tragedy. The film became one of the highest-grossing movies of all time, embedding the Titanic into American cultural memory. But beyond Hollywood, the true legacy of the Titanic is not spectacle, it is accountability. The disaster forced governments to confront the consequences of unchecked optimism. It exposed the danger of assuming technology could conquer nature without humility. It reminded America that progress must be paired with responsibility. More than a century later, the story still resonates because it asks timeless questions. How do we respond in crisis? Who do we save first? What does leadership look like when time is running out? The Titanic was a marvel of engineering, but it was also a mirror reflecting society's strengths and weaknesses. In the end, steel and rivets failed, but acts of bravery endured. On that freezing April night, in the vast darkness of the Atlantic, humanity revealed itself, flawed, divided, courageous, and compassionate all at once. And that is why the Titanic is not just a shipwreck in history books. It is a warning, it is a lesson, and it is a story America will never forget.